Something that makes our church distinct is that Church of Peace harbors a luminous passion for literacy. When you look at all the ways that we serve the community, literacy is on every list. And you would be right to wonder why that is. Where does this commitment even come from? Well, Church of Peace is part of the United Church of Christ, and in our denomination, the commitment to literacy is fueled by a few different tributaries. So one stream comes from our Congregationalist ancestors. Now these folks held in high regard the power of individual conscience. They believed that more than just the work of our hands and the feelings in our hearts, faith requires intellectual rigor. We won't just go along with whatever the authorities say is true about the Bible. No, thank you. We will be a people who read the Bible for ourselves, who interpret the scriptures critically, and who are not afraid to argue because we know that debate helps us consider new possibilities and clarify our conclusions. So you see, this historical commitment to education is one part of our church's story. Another tributary comes from Latin America in the 1960s and 70s. This is when Catholic leaders established Christian base communities in order to support workers who were being oppressed. And you want to know what they did? They taught them how to read. And this push for literacy gave birth to liberation theology, which has become another stream in the story of the United Church of Christ. In Brazil, educator Paulo Freire discovered that when people learn how to read, they also learn something else. They also find self-realization and expression. So through reading, they actually find their own truth. And this is something that we understand well at Church of Peace. You want to know why we care so much about literacy? Well, part of it is the historical commitment of our ancestors. Part of it is the theological commitment to liberation. Most of it is because we know learning to read is always about more than learning to read. In recent years, Church of Peace has been a home for the ESL program operated by Spring Forward and World Relief. Immigrant and refugee mamas come into our fellowship hall for classes while their little children learn English in the third-floor nursery. Church of Peace offers a program called Peace Pals. This is when children from the academy who need an extra boost with reading come over to our church on Wednesday afternoons for a snack and reading activities, and often a guest reader from our church. Now, both ESL and Peace Pals operate from the same core truth. Learning to read gives you access to the world, and your contribution to the world matters. You matter. So as much as both of these programs teach word building activities and those technical skills of reading, they also teach our neighbors that their lives have meaning and we know it. They know they will find loving kindness at Church of Peace. Outside by the DeMar Bester Memorial Bench you will find a little library. This is a gift to our community, especially in recent months, because our own food pantry library has been on hiatus due to the pandemic. Alongside these venues for loaning books, Church of Peace operates the Book Nook at Rock Island Academy. This is where children can purchase new, popular books for only $1 a piece. The little library and the Book Nook have similar goals: getting books into the homes and hands of our neighbors. These ministries know there is a splendid moment when learning how to read becomes learning that you love to read. And around here, we live for this moment. Wanting books and finding pleasure in reading is just as important as mastering comprehension skills. We're a people who know what it is to lose yourself in a book that you can't put down, only to find ourselves more alive than we ever were before. If a book has ever made your heart thrill, then you understand. Reading is work that awakens something deep in our soul. Often, reading is a solitary pursuit. It's something we do by ourselves. But this makes it all the more extraordinary when we sit down together in the lounge and share what reading has exposed in us. Through the book discussion group at Church of Peace, we're not just getting to know a book a little better, we're actually getting to know each other a little better. We're getting to know each other in those deep places where our hearts can break and our minds can change. And really, this is what it is to be a community of faith. At Church of Peace, we don't just read the Bible to find out what it says. We know that reading the Bible is work that brings us closer to each other. It brings us right into the very heart of God. One way we imagine Jesus is that he is the way connecting human people with the immensity of love that is God. So Jesus himself is the way, or as the writer of the fourth gospel says it, Jesus himself is the Word. This means there is no discernible difference between following Jesus and reading the Word. It is the same thing. Learning to read is always about more than learning to read. It is always the beginning of so much more. May it be so.